Hello, hi, how are you? And welcome to another podcast by George. Well, we're back with our old buddy, our old pal, our friend James Biehn at his place, the Central Iowa Music Lab, his instructional center, his music school. It's where the lessons take place and where a lot of this genius is warehoused. And I wanted to get back with James because not only was the first podcast a lot of fun, it ran long, we had to split it up into two segments, it also was one of our most widely listened to podcasts. Everybody, and I think the music was on there. That's got a lot to do with it because people will listen to a podcast, and then if the music's good, they'll go back and at least re-listen to that part of it. So they like your music, James. They like you. So, yeah, we're a big fan.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's that Norwalk magic.
Yeah, there you go. We're both from Norwalk. We talked about that a little bit on the show. And I was struck driving in here today. You're maybe not even aware of this. Today's Willie Nelson's birthday.
You know what? I think it was yesterday, actually.
Was it yesterday?
Yeah, but because I read this thing where it was yesterday. Well, in addition to being my wife's birthday yesterday, it was like Willie Nelson, Duke Ellington. There are like two or three others where I went, geez, man, there's something about that day. But
yeah,
86 Willie Nelson is.
Yeah,
now.
I saw that, 86 years old. And the point that I make with folks is you got to pay attention to people like Willie. And I do, and I didn't used to. And well, Willie's country. Well, Willie's more than country, but he's this living connection. Buddy Guy is like that in my mind. He goes back. Buddy can tell you on pure terms about Muddy Waters. You got to talk to Buddy about the old days in Chicago and coming out of the Delta and all that kind of stuff. Well, Willie, God, he goes back to Hank Williams and Bob Wills, and he's got that Texas connection down there. He knows the early days of the Grand Ole Opry. This guy is worth just, regardless of whether or not you like his music, listen to the dude. He's got some stories to tell.
No, I think he and Buddy Guy, it's different sides of the same coin, but it's a uniquely American story.
Yeah.
And it's this thing where, in Willie's case, like everything you just said, and then like he wrote Crazy and sold it to Patsy Cline.
And
for people like that, I almost think of it like the movie Forrest Gump. It's like, here's this person who just happened into these historical moments.
Right.
And, and then he did The Highwaymen in was it the 80s, I believe?
Right. Still, for a lot of people, that is absolutely the best. Yeah, and I go to some of these live venues. A lot of people want to hear that stuff. Still today.
You can't mess with it.
Yeah. It's great stuff. And and he's I don't know if he's a friend because you never know where his head's at, but he's got a connection with Bob Dylan. They did a lot of touring together. Those guys have a mutual appreciation anyway. I don't know if they're big buddies or not, but
I think. Well, I don't know if Bob Dylan's friends with anybody.
That's what I mean. It's kind of hard to tell, isn't it?
He seems like a lone wolf a little bit, but these are these guys that. I think Johnny Cash also had a unique relationship with Bob Dylan.
Definitely.
And Johnny Cash recorded a couple of Bob's songs, at least a couple. And I think especially in that time period, I feel sometimes like with the internet, it's kind of caused a little bit less individuality among artists, be it musicians, be it actors. I don't know. There's something where it's just like, the area of the country that you come from isn't as influential because you have this overarching influence being social media or whatever it may be. And these guys, I think they just recognize each other as like pillars in their respective fields. And so Bob Dylan, I don't know, like I would like to think Bob Dylan has broke bread with somebody like Buddy Guy, but I know definitely like he and Willie Nelson tour together. They do those things together. They kind of have same circles. They both have children that have gone on to be fantastic musicians.
True.
Yeah. So, no, it's really cool. And I personally enjoy when people that I'm a fan of turn out to be fans of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And Willie crosses all these genres. For one, he kind of got to be a favorite grandfather as opposed to a favorite son of the jam bands. He'll appear on stage and jam with these guys at Farm Aid. His kids, you mentioned, they're with Neil Young at times. They got a band.
Yeah. Willie's son Lucas is a tremendous songwriter, singer, And his band is called Promise of the Real. And not long ago, I think maybe for the last 5 years or so, they've been Neil's backup band when he goes and tours with a band.
Yeah.
That's pretty high praise in my book.
Yeah. And, his singing is what it is. People love Willie Nelson. His songwriting is beyond compare. One of the greatest American songwriters. Guitar playing. I've watched Willie. He's a underrated guitar player. That guy can pick.
Highly underrated.
Yeah.
And that style that he plays kind of stems from this like 30s and 40s, what they call gypsy jazz. There's a guy named Django Reinhardt who's this French guitar player. Was in a fire, couldn't use his ring finger or pinky on his left hand, and was still able with 2 fingers to play faster and with more accuracy than, say, 90% of players out there. It's amazing. And Willie took a page from that playbook, and just his style. I mean, it's a very individual style, and I can hear it when I hear Willie play. I don't know. It's once again one of those kind of like it's a through line to a different point in history, and I think I hope that younger generations at least pick up his music, if not go and see him live while he's still around.
Yeah.
So that's he's special.
I mean, it's Bob Dylan, Woody Guthrie. This guy's more like Stephen Foster. I mean, he's an American icon. They'll be listening to and playing his music long after he's gone. 86 years old.
And I just read yesterday in June he's going to put out a new studio album, and it's like his 70th studio album. I mean, geez, it's like more than an album a year, for that guy.
Yeah, and talk about aging. One of the things that's most aged about Willie's guitar. That guitar is beat to hell. So this is a technical question. Looking at that thing, does a guitar change its sound, or when it's like that? I mean, does that affect how his guitar sounds, or is it just the way it looks?
You mean like a hole through the front?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I look at that and I guess that's got to sound different, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, probably. But I mean, what affects the sound more with a guitar is, so you have a guitar brand new from the factory, and it's still stiff. It's like the wood is just, everything's brand new on it. It's just super shiny, and as you play it, especially those old acoustic guitars, the more you play it, you get this, the notes go through it, and it vibrates the instrument, and they call it loosening up. The body loosens up. And so like the hide glue and everything in it starts to take these vibrations into account. And so like, say a G chord, which is a very common chord on guitar, especially acoustic, you play a G chord through a guitar for however long Willie's had that thing, 60 years maybe, and that thing's going to sound like a choir of angels. Like it just has a thing to it. Whereas if you do that with a brand new guitar, it's just, it's really hard to find a guitar that right off the bat will have that kind of life to it.
Yeah.
And so I think, overall, like those two are inseparable. Like Willie's been the only one to play that thing for all these years.
Yeah.
And it's, so I think whether the holes, he even put that hole in it, it wasn't like he did that. That's just from the picking,
strumming it, yeah.
Yeah.
So. Willie Nelson at this advanced age of 86 years, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to think of some other guys that, now Buddy Guy's getting up there on the
still
blues
around
side.
80. Buddy Guy's, I think, 82 now.
Yeah. You know who's, I just saw our friend Al Smith posted on Facebook, a guy that just turned 81, I think, Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was that old.
I knew that he was. He was one of those guys, and I think of it the aging thing is interesting to me. You think of the Box Tops.
Mm-hmm.
That kid was like 17 years old or 18 years old that sang that song. Well, Ian Hunter with Mott the Hoople, he was older. He was like 30 or 35. He even had a little bit of a family and stuff. Most of these guys are, in their early 20s and stuff like that. Ian Hunter, at the time that Mott the Hoople was out there, was an old man, for the genre. Yeah, Tommy James was real young. A lot of people didn't realize that. When Tommy James and the Shondells, like when that song of theirs, not Moni Moni, but I think we're alone now. Anyway, their first song, it's not coming to my mind, but anyway, when that thing, he was like 17 or 18 years old.
Well,
So-
with Give Me Some Lovin', Steve Winwood
Yes.
was to Spencer Davis, 15.
Yeah, and sounded like a Ray Charles or something. He had a voice that you could kill for.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And playing the Hammond organ.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah, that's right. Steve Winwood. Well, the other thing, just to close out, Willie, that I really like about him is I'm reminded of Jerry Garcia, and I'm reminded, who also Willie had deep roots with. So you had Jerry Garcia. You got Bono.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, I like their music. They're not maybe at the top of my list, but I love listening to them.
Sure.
And when Willie's interviewed, I'm tuning in. I mean, I got to hear what this guy's got to say because of this connection to the past. But also, he's at the age himself now, 86. He doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks.
Nope.
I mean, he will say what he wants to, and he's going to show up in your town, and he's going to sit in his tour bus and smoke pot. And if you don't like it, you can come arrest him if you want to. But they've gotten to the point where, oh, hell, he's 86. Just leave him alone. Just let him do what he does.
Oh, well, he got busted, somewhere in the last 2 or 3 years, they pulled his bus over. It's like...
It was smoking going down the road, basically.
I support law enforcement, but come on, like that deserves a demotion, But the other thing too with somebody like Willie, and I know we probably should move topics, but man, he's such a he's a black belt, which is super cool. He's got his black belt. I think that's awesome. And that takes some discipline and some perseverance.
Right, yeah.
But also, so I saw him at the Valera Ballroom maybe around 98 or 99, and it was a tremendous show. I mean, it was 2 hours of not stopping between songs. He would end the first, Whiskey River. He always comes out, opens with Whiskey River. That song hits the last chord, and he starts singing the next one. The band goes, and they jump on and play with him. Which, by the way, is drummer Paul English that still plays with him. He's been with him for the last 60 years or so.
Wow.
So anyway, so they do the show, and back then especially, I was always a fan of like I wasn't really like out to like be a stalker or anything, but I just wanted to like just be around these people, get an autograph, something like that. It was pre-social media. I just wanted an autograph, sign my ticket stub, and I still have a stack of ticket stubs at home. And, I go back, and I would always just stand by the bus. Well, I go and I stand by the bus, and there's got to be at least 100 other people standing by the bus after this Willie show. And I'm like, well, I'll stick around for like 20 minutes, and we'll see what happens. And about 10 or 15 minutes later, his bus door opens, and he stands on the step of the bus. Like when you're getting on a bus, it's the step next to the ground. And I was in line for about 45 minutes to an hour, and he stood and he took every picture and he signed every shirt, every ticket stub. I got a ticket stub signed by him.
And this is an old man that just did a 2-hour show nonstop.
Yeah,
and he's
at
not
that
doing
time
this
was
tired.
probably 65 to 70, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And just had, and B.B. King was the same way too. I was fortunate enough to meet him a couple of times. And these are guys who understand that. I mean, I would understand if he didn't come out. I would understand if he was like, "No, I want to go to bed." And
Right.
but these are, it's also a grateful generation, I think, to go. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for these fans, and I wouldn't be here, and they. Like I said, ultimately at that age, do what you want, and I'll understand, and I'll still support you and buy your albums and everything. But I just thought it was just that extra thing of like, man, how great is that they're not hiding from their fans, or they're not, I just feel like it's kind of a lost art in a way. Just that generation who understands, like, like B.B. King's story, I know a little better, but like the idea of like, when he first started, they told me he'd make $7 a week, and compared to cotton fields for him, that was it's like, play guitar for $7 a week. Yeah. Like, you're going to pay me to do that?
Yeah.
And all the success and all the admiration that came with that, like that wasn't lost on him.
Yeah.
So I just think that's kind of to kind of close out on Willie. I think just that moment, meant as much to me as the music did.
No, happy birthday, Willie!
And happy birthday!
I wanted to start that way because it was top of mind with me. What's top of mind with you? Somebody comes to you and says, James, what's going on with the music? What are you up to these days?
I got a couple things going on. I'm going to, it hasn't been a real public thing, but I am going to take kind of a small break from live shows. I'm going to. I still have some shows booked on the calendar, but I have a couple of projects in mind. There have been a lot of things that have come up. One being a couple of projects that I want to get to, namely kind of focusing on Central Iowa Music Lab and students, and kind of taking an online direction as far as the instruction goes, and kind of exploring that and kind of getting that up and going. It's funny. I've talked with a couple of other musicians about this lately, about just, being, I turned 42 in March, and I've been playing, my first gig, playing in front of public, in public with a band that wasn't a school band, was the age of 15. I actually played Joel Hess, who we talked about in the last podcast. Hired myself and my two friends. We had a band, and hired us for the school reunion.
I loved you. Rest in peace, brother.
Yeah. He gave me my first gig. He said, "Can you come?" And it was at maybe the Marriott by the airport or something like that.
Airport Inn. Yep.
Yeah, and
Hilton Inn. Yeah.
Yeah. So we myself and my two friends, we had a trio, and I can think at the time all I knew was like Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan songs, which
that ain't bad.
That worked. You could do a lot worse.
Yeah.
So that was at the age of 15, and then gigs just steadily increased, and I've been doing it since then. And
that's a longer time than you think. I mean, 42. We've changed our perspective on things. I remember. Okay, you remember about I know you remember. You probably know the exact wording of it, but the band, The Last Waltz. Mm-hmm. Remember when they're asked about, and Robbie's talking about how we've been on the road for, 15 years?
For so long.
Yeah, and he says, if we stay out here, we're going to die. It's going to kill us. And so, and I look at that, and that was back then. I got to show this. So I talked to, maybe I mentioned this before, I talked to Todd Park more about that. I got a chance to ask him a question one time, and I asked him about...
You mentioned talking to him, but I don't know about this part.
Well, their longevity.
Yeah.
And because they've been doing it since as long as you have, maybe longer.
Yeah.
And he said, well, and I mentioned the band scenario. I said, God, Robbie said it was going to kill him after 15 years. 20. He turned me straight face and said, well, it helps if you're not taking heroin. That'll help your longevity.
I mean,
there is something to that.
For some people, that's what keeps them out there, but I don't know. No, that's certainly true. But Robbie also had a point. I mean, with Robbie Robertson, say what you want about his role in the band or his songwriting or whatever. I love the band, and it's also been I've certain groups I've kind of been almost like an archaeologist and kind of done my research because it's what I want to do. It's all I've been super passionate about for so long. But then you started getting into these stories, and you watch that movie, you watch The Last Waltz, and I mean those guys, like, in a couple of cases their end was not pretty.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, it was not pretty.
And and I think to a degree. I kind of joke about this, but in a way it's kind of true. Is like the age that you kind of fall in love with music is kind of the age you stay, And so I feel like 15 or 16 for so long in my case has kind of been kind of where my head's been at, And granted, there are growing up moments and there are things that you add to your life as you get older, But I've just been kind of lately, I hit 42 and I just felt kind of like, if I feel like doing something else, and I'll always love music, I have no, it's not like I'm just giving up playing or giving up, any of that. But, 42 hit, and I just kind of went, am I going to be what is expected of me by other people and their perception, or am I going to, I don't know, am I going to just kind of do what I want and what feels good and what I'm excited about? Because I'll tell you right now, being done with the gig at midnight or 1 a.m., is not exciting to me.
I got it.
And I am just at the point too where I mean, it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of kind of audiences at times being a little bit hit or miss in terms of, I'm not saying I need, worldwide adulation, but the energy of a good night on stage has just as much to do, if not more so, than with the audience than your own performance. Sure. It's a reciprocating thing when you go on stage and you play a solo that just kind of, and people cheer and you kind of feed off that energy and you get it back. It's, and there's some times where, you do these, like what my friend humorously refers to as potted plant gigs, where you're kind of in the corner and may or may not be paid attention to.
You're kind of like background music. Well, and I know it doesn't always work, but for me, the thing of it is early start times, particularly for our generation as we get older. And some of these old blues guys still, they want to start at 9, 10 o'clock at night. My God almighty. I mean, I can't do it. No. I want to be there till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, but it ain't working for me because, old people get up early. I don't know what it is, but it's hard to stay up that late. So these gigs, like that Bob Pace and the Dangerous Band down there at the Gas Lamp on Friday afternoons at 4:30 start time on Friday when everybody gets out of work. I mean,
perfect.
That's great. And then you still got
and he packs it every time.
Yeah.
Like it's wall to wall that whole time. And I would so much rather have that, or, I did my, kind of selfishly kind of put a birthday show together in March and had all these, just various musicians come and play just because I wanted it to be part of, what we were talking about off mic a minute ago about musicians in town never get to see each other because we're always playing and we're always. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to invite Matt Woods to come and do a tune with me. And I'm going to invite whoever, just all these people that I just don't see. And I made it a 4 o'clock start time. We played 4 to 7 and it was magic, and it was so much fun. And I kind of in my mind went, if I just did this once a year, as far as like public performances, now I'm fortunate enough where I have this studio and I can book any Sunday afternoon in my big room here at the lesson studio and invite whoever I want and just have a jam and have a thing where, that is as insofar as like playing with other people, that's just as meaningful to me, at this point. And I don't, and I'm a parent of, I have multiple children. The youngest are 4 and 2. And, no matter what time I go to bed, I'm up at 6, and so I don't want to miss that. Like, I don't want to sleep in for that, because I already have a 14-year-old right now who, loves me and we're great, but I mean, he's just getting to be that age where he's just trying to find his own independence, and some of that includes kind of not necessarily wanting to hang out with your parents a whole lot.
I get that. Yeah, well, we all been there.
Yeah, so I'm so that's kind of where I am as far as I don't know, just things lately, and it's that stuff I've been thinking about a lot lately. And then kind of the final piece of that puzzle was that my wife got this job, kind of her dream job as a midwife, and it's a really, really big deal, and I feel like she has put up with enough of my nonsense over the years with gigs and being out of town and whatever else, that I just kind of went, you know what, that's great. She'll have she'll have a lot of on-call time that she'll need to be available for, and I'm like, I'm good with hanging out with the kids and just being around a little more, and meanwhile, the other things that I have kind of on my plate insofar as professionally, be it the music lab or this online music education thing that I'm starting, that can all be done between 8 and 3 while they're in school, or this and that. So just kind of reshuffling some things, and then later on, if things ease up and I feel like doing some more gigging, then then I'll do that. But right now it's just last summer I played, and I played 3 to 4 shows a week, and I was about done at the end of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it's great, it's interesting when you choose to make this your life, when you're younger. When I was younger, I kind of went, I'm going to do this. This is going to be my job. I'm just going to play guitar, and it's going to be my job. And then, other life things come along that require that you have a little more income coming in, or at least keep track of it better, and maybe not spend it on silliness. It's
not how much you make, it's how much you have left over.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Jeez, I'm going to tattoo that. So then you start taking, I do this gig I'm not super thrilled about, but it's going to pay our car payment this month, and you take that, and then you start kind of going, okay, well, now I'm doing it because I need to do it, not necessarily because I wanted to do it, and I just want to get back to that place as far as the music goes, where I want to do it, and where it's still, like gigging, not playing music, once again, to reiterate, but just going out and the late night thing, and I don't know if I'll ever go back to that, because that whole Sunday afternoon thing, or like Bob's gig, man, he's got it made with that thing.
And you've done it before, and I mean, you were a big hit down there too. I mean, people love your catalog of music. That was great stuff. I was there, so I loved it. It was and it was very it was very kind of Bob to take the risk on me, because that is his gig, and to go, okay, well, I can't make this one, but and I had seen it. I've been down there before and seen that show, so I kind of knew what it entailed. And a lot of it's, that night, we didn't have a set list, and we were just kind of, on stage. Fortunately, Tom Murphy's playing bass. And Tom knows pretty much every song in existence. You're in the groove there, yeah.
Yeah, so it was just a matter of kind of starting a song in the middle of a different song, and Tom goes, "Oh, I know." Whatever, Stranglehold by Ted Nugent or whatever
Anything.
It may be. And then you just go do it, you know?
He just got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Tom did?
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
well deserved.
Yeah.
I mean, he's also another dude that I look up to, where he and Bob, Jeff Banks, this generation where, I've talked to Tom a lot. Like Tom's one of the people I know of maybe a handful who have never done another job. Like they've only been a musician.
Yep.
And it was also a time where you could do, say, 6 nights at a hotel, 6 nights in a row, like what they'd call a residency. And that would be your job. Then the next week you go to a different spot and you do 6 nights in a row or whatever it may be, and that's great, and those gigs aren't there anymore, but it's cool to hear, that at one point was the cool thing to do,
Okay, well, I did it again. We're running along. I don't know, just something about it when James and I get together. We just seem to have a lot to talk about. I love this guy. I love his music. And we're going to split this one up, too. We're going to do a 2-part podcast again. I'm not going to keep you waiting, though, for the music that I promised. We're going to play that. And by the way, this talk about Tom Murphy, a little foreshadowing there, a little coming attractions for you. We're going to have another podcast with Tom Murphy, just inducted into the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, another big friend of a podcast by George. And Murph is coming up here in just, I don't know when I'll get to it here. It'll be a few episodes yet, but stand by for the episode with Tom Murphy. But for right now, we're going to take a break with this podcast. We're going to end with this song that I talked about. Now, it's new for most folks. It actually was recorded a couple of years ago at an acoustic gig with James and Sarah. Most people have never heard this. It's called Reunion, which is very poignant and a great song for a podcast like this because, we're talking some serious stuff here. This is a big thing for James and his career and a change in his life, and most of us that have passed on this trail in life have had to make a decision at one time or another, and he's making one. So this is a an interesting podcast for that reason in and of itself. Anyway, here's the song. It's called Reunion.
Touchdown, feel the earth below me, sky as far as I see, open road ahead. Now I feel the company of travelers, sisters and brothers, eastward we're led. These walls are feeling so familiar, feeling oh so similar to everyone around. And now we start to join in on the chorus, growing more and more, turning breath into sound. So the hills they call me home, and their voice I've come to know, and the faces greet me one by one, reunion in the sun. Now I am alone beside the water, not a soul to bother, out here on my own. Now I am open to this moment, never try to force it, and let it lead me on. And I've sat at the feet of masters, taking what they've given, passing it along. And now I felt the kindness and the wisdom, circle still unbroken, together in the song. So the hills they call me home, and their voice I've come to know, and the faces greet me one by one, reunion in the sun. And now it's time to make the journey back to friends and family, back to what I've known. But now this is not forever goodbye. Next time you'll be here, just like it's always shown. In the hills they let me home, and their voice I've come to know. In the hills they let me home, and we'll see you again once more. In the hills they let me home, and their voice I've come to know. But now the faces leave me one by one, reunion in the sun. And there you go.